Good evening and welcome to the June 14th regular meeting of the Novi Board of Education. We are getting started a little bit later because we are adult ed graduation, but we are thankful that you are all here and are joining us this evening. If you would all please, if you would please do a roll call vote for me, Mr. Mena.
Trustee Cook.
Here.
Trustee Smith.
Here.
Trustee Hood.
Here.
Trustee Mena here. Trustee Murphy.
Here.
Trustee O'Connor is out. Trustee Stevenson.
Here. All right. If you would all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Do we have any changes to our agenda this evening? I'm going to ask that, I'm going to ask for a change to the school board member recognition, to postpone that till next week because Mr. O'Connor is not here this evening.
We can.
So could I have a motion to approve the agenda without that particular item as amended?
I move that we accept the agenda with the amendment to remove the discussion about the recognition of school board members.
Support.
Okay, it's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mr. Mena. If there's no discussion, I'd like to call the question. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our student board member report. I will turn to you, young ladies, to introduce yourselves to us and tell us where you're from. And you don't have to tell us all of your summer plans, but maybe tell us what's going on at the middle school.
Hi, I'm Ashna Tlucker, and I'm this year's Student Council President.
Hi, I'm Julia Taro, and I'm this year's Secretary.
Congratulations to all three middle school choirs for their success at the MSVMA District Choir Festival. March 19th and 22nd, all three middle school choirs attended the MSVMA Choir Festival at Walled Lake Northern High School. Men's choir received a perfect score in sight reading and an overall score of 104 and a Division I rating, which qualified them for the state festival. 7th grade's women choir received a 29 out of 30 in sight reading and a total combined score of 110 points, a Division I rating, and also qualified for states. 8th grade women's choir received a perfect score in sight reading, a Division I rating, and a total score of 112 points, also qualifying for the state festival. Way to go, choirs.
On May 14th, the Interact Club volunteered at Wellbridge of Novi. They spent an hour after school to playing cards and socializing with the senior residents. June 1st was the date of our 8th grade farewell. Over 350 students attended the event. We had a DJ, blow-ups, double slide, photo booth, and lots of snacks. Everybody had a great time.
Class elections were held for the class of 2022. Our class officers are President Jimin Sun, Vice President Omer Shemsher, Secretary Evelyn Cho, and our treasurer is Anika Venkanagari.
On Tuesday, June 5th, our 7th grade STEM students were paid a visit by members of the Detroit Red Wings organization for a street hockey clinic. All of the hockey equipment was donated by the Red Wings to our middle school. We received 24 sticks, 2 goals, and goalie equipment. This equipment will be used by our phys ed department. Our STEM students participated in a Hockey Scholars STEM program where they learned STEM concepts through the sport of hockey. Our school was chosen from a number of participating schools for the visit by the Red Wings. Our students really enjoyed themselves.
We, the students of Novi Middle School, just want to say thank you to Dr. Matthews and the school board for a great year. Thank you for all that you do for us to make our district so awesome.
Well, you're very welcome. And thank you for being here with us on your last day of school tomorrow, and here you are. So thank you for coming. Thank you for sharing about the insights of the middle school. Are you both off to the high school next year?
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, we might see you again then, back at our board table at some point. But certainly, we will see you at the high school. So make sure you walk up to us and say hello when you see us, okay? We like that. All right, thank you. We will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is reports to the board. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. Tonight we have the first Robotics Frog Force 503 who will present a report to the board summarizing their experiences that the team had this school year and recognizing their sponsors who supported them through their competitions. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janet Bloom, and I am a mentor on the Novi High School Frog Force Robotics team. And it's been a privilege to work alongside talented students, parents, mentors. I think going on almost 8 years now within the Novi Robotics program. And I know I speak for the team, and I want to say thank you to the Novi Community School District and also to the Novi School Board for their support of our team and the efforts that of getting STEM out in our community. And so again, I want to thank everybody here for that. And so we want to keep it fairly brief. We've got a lot of information to cover. And I'll turn it over to our 3 team members for a recap of our season and also our sponsor recognition. Thank you.
So, we talked about the
You know what?
program that we're in first.
You know what, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to step up here so the microphone picks you up. And they'll most likely put it up here on the big screen for us as well, maybe.
And if you could introduce yourself as well.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Arnav. I'm the sponsor relations group lead for the high school team. And so let's start off by introducing what exactly FIRST is. So a little bit about FIRST is that it stands for Inspiration and Recognition of Science and Technology. And it's basically an extracurricular engineering competition which is more than just robots, with the business side and the engineering side of the competition. And it inspires students to pursue careers in STEM and encourages students to spread STEM awareness to the community, and it ranges all the way from kindergarten all the way to high school age. And one of the quotes from the founder, Dean Kamen, is the FIRST mission is to inspire young people to be science and technology leaders and to foster well-rounded life capabilities, including self-confidence, communication, and leadership. So a few FIRST facts include that there's over 400,000 students alone in this year, and there's 500 at Michigan FRC high school level teams. And this program is in 85 countries. And this year, one of the World Championships was held in Detroit, right around here.
Hi, I'm Shivani. I was last season's president of 503. So as you can see on the slide, our team is a very decorated team. This year alone, at districts, we won the Engineering Inspiration Award, the Creativity Award, the Imagery Award, the Industrial Design Award, and we were a robot finalist. At states, we won the Excellence Engineering Award, and also at states, we were awarded the action portion of the Relentless Positive Action Award that is given by Governor Snyder each year. Our mentor actually received that on behalf of our team.
So each year, hi, I'm Sydney Grexmeyer. I am the game-specific design group lead, so one of the build group for the leader of that. So each year in January, there is a new game released for us to build a robot for and compete in. And we get 6 weeks to build a robot to compete in this. So this year the name of the game was FIRST Power Up. And the objective of this game was to take these yellow cubes that were about milk crate size and score them in designated areas. And the amount you scored was compared to the other lines, the amount they scored, and whoever had more, the scale or the switch, were the areas that you scored them in, tipped certain ways. And so the objective was to have the scale and the switch tipping towards your alliance. And then at the end of the game, the objective was to get as many robots that were on your alliance to climb the scale. So each year during our 6-week build season, we have 11 groups. So we have an opportunity for everyone on the team to find what they are looking for and what they are passionate about, and to go into that on our team. So on the build side of things, we have chassis, drivetrain, game-specific, electrical, pneumatics, and programming. And for the business side, we have marketing, finance, sponsor relations, multimedia, and outreach. And so this gives a great opportunity for anyone who wants to join our team to find a spot that they will enjoy. And for the build side of things, we have a 3-step process to build our robot. We start by using CAD software, and we prototype our ideas and put them in CAD, seeing how they will work. We then fabricate and assemble our different ideas, and we finally test and improve so we can have the most competitive robot that we can build for our competitions. So this is our robot from last year. Our robot was actually able to extend up to 8 feet in the air, so we were able to deliver these cubes into some of the designated areas. And as you can see in that picture on the top right, we were actually able to lift not only ourselves, but another robot with us at the end of the game, which set us apart from other teams in Michigan and even across the world that we saw at the world competition. So a lot of skills are learned no matter what area you are in on the team. So on the build side of the team, you learn CAD design, Java programming, electrical, pneumatics, some engineering processes, and how to use tools and different materials, and also safety. And on the business side of our team, you learn presentation skills, business plans, more of the financial aspects of our team, and how to do graphic design and animation.
So our team, we don't only have a successful robot, we also do a lot of volunteer work. So we do community demonstrations throughout Novi, and one of our main goals is to spread STEM awareness. So we have a heavy presence in Detroit. We actually work closely with 3 centers there. So there's a Safe Play Center where we actually mentor younger students, and in all 3 of these centers we also mentor the coaches there. So the Safe Play Center was founded by Mitch Album, and then the DHDC, we've been working with them since like the creation of the center. So they have a special center inside the DHDC called the RECT, which is where we help with the robotics side. DHDC is the Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation.
Oh, thank you.
And then the RECT is the Robotics Engineering Center of Detroit. And so we actually helped lay the groundwork and like build the floors, and then since then we've been helping the teams there like run a more sustainable program. And then the Detroit PAL is a new program that we are working with this year. So the Detroit PAL actually creates a better relationship between the students in Detroit and their police. So we work with them to also create more Detroit teams. They actually have 20 first teams this year due to us, and then they plan to double next year. And then a couple stats. So in just 6 years, we assisted over 500 teams, mentored over 80 teams, spent over 1,500 hours mentoring and 20,000 hours volunteering. And then in the past 2 years alone, we've hosted and participated in over 250 events. And then NBOT, which stands for like the Novi Robotics Boosters. So we hold an annual community robotics meeting every year. It's annual. And we like to call it our town hall meeting. So basically we present about all the programs in FIRST to the community, like anyone that's interested in joining a team. And then we take any questions they have, and we show all the programs in that the lunchroom. And we help with financial resources for teams. We're working with Community Ed, I believe, to help make their season go smoother. And we also loan build kits to teams as needed, so they don't have to pay for the kit every single year.
Some additional statistics about what our team does is we have helped to start 35 first teams in all across Novi, and that was just in this past season. We also host a middle school competition for the middle school teams where we attract more than 400 guests to Novi who come and watch this event. We've also done a lot of work with the program Enable, and we've taught our community how to 3D print and assemble over 200 prosthetic hands for those in need. And we've held 15 Build-A-Hand events at our local library and all 5 of our Novi elementary schools, and we're really getting our community involved with such a great program. And also some of our students are designing custom prosthetics for some students in Novi and across the country that are missing their wrist or their arm. Additionally, we're partnering with Feed the Need this summer to bring STEM activities to students. And we are also inspiring girls in our district to pursue their STEM interests. And we did that by hosting a summer STEM workshop for girls. And we also go to the annual girls competition where we compete and we train all the girls on our team how to drive, work on the robot, and everything that they need to do so they can have a great time. And we are also invited to help spread STEM and FIRST worldwide. So last year we were invited to help a pre-rookie team get FIRST involved in their school in China, and we helped them to go to a competition, and they actually were able to win the competition. And we also went to Australia and helped them to start some programs there. And lastly, we were invited to be a part of a global alliance of 10 teams that support FIRST teams around the world to help be more sustainable. And we are helping teams in whatever way they need just so they can have a better experience in FIRST.
So our wonderful sponsors contribute a lot to our team, And some of the stuff that they contribute include mentors, financial aid, as well as tools, parts, and machinery, and other engineering services. And they often also give us internships. So today we'd like to thank and recognize our sponsors: the Novi Community School District, our founding sponsor Magna, Denso, Nissan, Autodesk, Panasonic Automotive, Tata Technologies, NGK, Emma International, A123 Systems, ASCO Pneumatics, and OSRAM. And we also want to mention IBM. They've also been funding us with financial aid just recently this year. And if we could recognize and call up each of our sponsors, starting with the Novi Community School District.
Thank you. Happy to accept this on behalf of the board.
NGK,
Fantastic. We can clap for them.
Nissan, Panasonic Automotive, and last but not least, Autodesk. So, in summary, ProgForce builds a successful robot while spreading STEM throughout the community, and we also, at the same time, learn the skills necessary to be successful in STEM and the real world. And our sponsor relationship goes two ways, where we get the resources for a successful team, and we also provide sponsors with feedback on how we do periodically. And we have the initiative to encourage the growth of STEM throughout our community and everywhere we go. And one thing is that next year our team, the game has already been released with the teaser, and the theme is this year's space, and so that'll be first launch. So that'll be interesting.
That'll be interesting. Fantastic. Does the board have?
Yep. Thank you.
It says
So,
any questions on my thing. So does the board have any questions for our ProgForce team this evening? I will say I've watched a few online, which is a really nice feature because they do explain things to you. The atmosphere there, though, must be fantastic, and I really would encourage anybody to take the time to watch it. It's a very cool event to watch. I know that you showed me around some of the things before you even really started the build to see what you're doing. So I'm sure that there's other people that might be interested in coming over and seeing what you're doing for next year as well. So I hope you do that event again where you kind of invited people to kind of come in and take a look. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting the kids and getting a little bit of a tour and a taste of what you guys do. And it wasn't completely new to me, but certainly being able to watch them online. And I will say, cheer, because everybody cheers during the event. It's a competition, and it's very exciting. So thanks for being here with us this evening, and thanks for your fantastic year. Sounds like you guys have been tremendously successful this past year, and we look forward to seeing you again next year and hearing about what you're doing. Okay?
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. Thanks for our sponsors too, really, just the efforts that you guys make to make this successful on behalf of our kids. We certainly thank you as a district for partnering with us. It definitely takes more than just the people sitting here and the money that we get from Lansing to make things happen for our kids. And we really thank you and hope that you'll continue that sponsorship and spreading STEM, because we know that that's desperately needed in our world today, right? For engineers, they're always looking for engineers to build more things and create more. So.
Mrs. Murphy.
Yes.
One thing you guys didn't mention, and it's really appreciated, is you do provide mentorship for all of the junior FLL and FLL teams out there, as well as the FRC and the FTC. It's greatly appreciated. I've had a couple of your mentors on my teams, and they've helped my kids out tremendously. So you're not just helping other communities out, you're helping your own community out. So we really appreciate that.
Will you be building anything over the summer, any of you?
We're going to be doing some off-season projects, so we're going to just be like doing some like learning, so hopefully we can implement some things we learned for the next season. And we're also going to be going to a few off-season competitions, so we're going to be having a competition next weekend in Taylor, one in July in Lapeer, and a few more events.
Fantastic. Well, good luck for a successful summer for all of you. Not just in STEM, but also just summer.
Thank you.
Thank you again for being here and all the great information. We appreciate it. Okay, we will move on to our comments from the audience. This is a first opportunity for comments from the audience related to agenda items only. We would ask that you approach the podium, fill out a green card, and if you would bring it up actually and lay it on the end of the table here if you do have comments to make about the items on our agenda this evening. We do have people here tonight, but I don't see anyone rushing to the podium. All right, well, seeing no one approach the podium, we will move on to our consent items. I would entertain a motion for the 4 consent items that we have on our agenda this evening. Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education accept consent items A, B, C, and D as presented.
Support.
It's been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mrs. Stevenson. This doesn't necessarily need any additional discussion, but is there anyone that would like to make a comment about any of those items this evening? Okay. A couple of these are organizational things, the MASB membership and the MHSAA membership are things that we need to do before the next year starts. Approval of the bills and approval of minutes are very standard. So I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the consent items as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our action items. Dr. Matthews, the personnel report.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. And we have 2 personnel reports this evening. I will turn the first personnel report over to Dr. Kinzer.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. This evening we have a number of new hires as well as retirements and resignations. First, the new hires. Kimberly Clark, she is a receptionist in Human Resources. We have a 4th grade teacher at Parkview Elementary School, Erica Decker. 4th grade teacher at Village Oaks, Stephanie Kurzer. I'm sorry, kindergarten teacher at Village Oaks, Stephanie Kurzer. 4th grade teacher at Deerfield, Christine Mint. 3 retirements, Joanne Jankowski, a parapro at Novi Meadows, Cindy Pingle, teacher consultant at ESB, and Janice Wesley, a parapro at Novi Meadows. Resignation, Charles Leclerc, assistant principal at Novi High School, and Alex Weberman, parapro at the high school.
All right. I would entertain a motion first, please.
I move that the Novi School District Board of Education adopts the personnel report recommendations as presented.
Support.
Been moved by Mrs. Stevenson and supported by Mr. Cook. Are there questions or comments about these new hires on the part of the board? Mr. Cook?
With the retirements, how are we doing with the backfill, and how do we stand? We've had a number of retirements, and we've got a lot of hiring yet to do. Right?
We have a lot of hiring yet to do, so we'll have a very full personnel report again next week, but we're very busy in HR in all of our buildings with hiring.
Is the Kimberly Clark that's the HR assistant receptionist, we had a
Kathy Miller is retiring.
Yes, we had a retirement, and her name was Kimberly Clark as well.
That
from
was,
the middle school
right,
math.
Meadows,
Meadows,
media specialist.
Media specialist, Meadows. But this is not the
This
same
is not
person.
her.
Just happens to be the same name. So the same year someone retires, we rehire someone. Well, I guess they're not here at the same time, so that would be less confusing. Okay. I'm sorry.
We have a policy that we have to have a Kim Clark in the district.
Anyways, we've had a motion. It's been supported. I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the personnel report A as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have a personnel report B. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. With the announcement of Stephanie Schreiner that she was retiring, the district began a search for her replacement. The job was posted on multiple administrative sites throughout the month of May, including the Oakland Schools Human Resources Consortium, the Michigan Elementary and Middle School Principal Association, Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals, and the Michigan Association of School Administrators. Over 120 applications, including 2 internal applicants, were received for consideration. Dr. Kinzer, Dr. Weber, and I did initial screening of the applicants. We reviewed each application, looking to see how the applicant matched up with the job requirements, their experience, and their background. From that initial pool, 8 applicants were screened using our HumanX screening tool. From that pool, 6 applicants, including 2 internal applicants, were invited to a panel interview. The panel interview consisted of 2 parents, 2 Novi Middle School teachers, a high school administrator, and an elementary administrator, the MTSS 504 coordinator, the director of transportation, Dr. Weber, and Dr. Kinzer. The interview required the applicant to introduce him or herself to the panel, a 25-question interview, and then a performance task. From that interview, 3 candidates were identified to be interviewed by the superintendent. I interviewed each of the remaining 3 candidates using a 16-question interview rubric. After the interviews were completed, I consulted with Dr. Weber and Dr. Kinzer. Following due consideration, I am pleased to recommend Mr. Robert Baker to the board for approval as the next Novi Middle School principal. Mr. Baker has been employed by the Novi Community School District since 2005. He began as a social studies and foreign language teacher at Novi High School in 2005. He was active as a teacher, serving as a content area leader, a chaperone for student trips to Mexico, Costa Rica, and Spain, and as Quiz Bowl coordinator, and has served on many school and district committees. In 2011, Mr. Baker was hired as the assistant principal at Novi High School. He has been a strong building administrator and an integral part of the team that has continued to move Novi High School forward. Mr. Baker is a strong instructional leader. He has taken on a leadership role in our school improvement process, coordinating our 2013 School Improvement District Certification visit. Mr. Baker has been active with student council and student activities at the high school. He has also learned student scheduling, student assessment, and has been a solid evaluator of teachers. Mr. Baker impressed me during his interview with his understanding of the role of a building leader. He has the skills to coordinate the varied and complex tasks that a building principal must engage in on a day-to-day basis. Mr. Baker also demonstrated through this process a strong commitment to the Novi Community School District, to the students in our district, and to continuing to develop the staff in our district. The process we engaged in to find a new middle school principal was quite thorough. We attracted high-quality applicants from across the state and nation. We interviewed a principal from North Carolina and several assistant principals and principals from across Michigan. We had a robust mix of cultures and backgrounds. In the end, Mr. Baker demonstrated that he was best suited to step into the role of Novi Middle School principal. He has the skills, knowledge, aptitude, and attitude to be successful as the next middle school principal, and I would ask the board to approve this recommendation this evening.
All right, I would first entertain a motion. Mrs. Hood?
I move that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve Mr. Robert Baker as the new principal for Novi Middle School.
Support.
Been moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mrs. Stevenson. Is there discussion or comments that the board would like to make? Mr. Mena?
Sure, my comments are a mixed bag. Dr. Kinzer, and don't take this personally because I bring up this comment every time we run into this. One of these days, somebody's going to have to sit down with me and explain, and I know a little bit about statistics and probability, how it is that every time we have 120 applicants, the 2 internal candidates always pop up on top. And maybe they are the best candidates. It just seems like it happens every time. And maybe one day we can sit down, maybe have some coffee, and you can explain that to me. That being said, I am very, very happy with this selection. Before I came here to support this selection, I did some due diligence and I asked some people at the high school that know Mr. Baker. I wanted to know if he was the right guy for this job. Some of the comments that I received from people that were repeated was that he was very intelligent, he was very fair, he goes to bat for teachers, he handles kids' disciplinary problems, which was something that I was very interested in hearing. And also, interesting enough, I heard from multiple people that he doesn't pawn off his work to others, so that was kind of nice to hear. I don't know Mr. Baker that well, but all of my interactions with him have been very, very positive, and I'm really, really excited to have him as our principal for the middle school. I will be supporting this personnel recommendation.
So Mrs. Hood?
I'm sorry.
Oh, did you have?
Yes, sorry. Thank you. I just, I know Mr. Mena brings this up, and maybe I will bring it up every time too, that I think that the process that Dr. Matthews outlined, that we go through for hiring our staff is robust, and it is something that our district should be proud of, can be proud of. I won't repeat all the different steps that all the candidates went through. I did review the resumes of the 3 finalists, and I will say that all 3 were very impressive candidates with years and years of relevant and really successful instructional leadership. So you had a really robust group of people to choose from. So it is encouraging to me that Mr. Baker's experience leading at our high school will also allow him to give our middle school students some added perspective and support as they prepare to move to the high school. So that was one thing that I thought really was a pro in Mr. Baker's column. So, you know, after this really rigorous assessment process with third-party HumanX assessment, I also am going to support the recommendation.
Any board members? Mr. Cook?
Nothing against Mr. Baker. Mine comes down to the process. We do have a very in-depth process. But in here it says we attracted a number of high-quality applicants. And to me, get your foot through the door, and only 8 of them got their foot through the door and got to HumanX out of 120. That's like 7%. So I'm not sure whether we were screening for something different than what the posting stated, but it seems like we had a lot of applicants that weren't meeting the requirements that we had set forth. Nothing against Mr. Baker. Every dealing I've had with him has been very positive. He seems to be very, very fair, very firm, and the students seem to like him. And I think if the board approves him here, he will do well in that position. But I think the weakness in this whole thing is our process and allowing people to get their foot in the door just to get through. Because when we only have 7%. There's a mismatch there.
Would you like to address that?
I can address that in part. With our, as you know, our teachers and our administrators both have a HumanX portion. For teachers, there is a kind of a pre-screen that they go through that generates a score that, for 300 teachers that apply for a position, we can screen down based on their responses to the HumanX pre-screen down to a manageable number of between 75 and 100 that the principals will examine closely. But for the administrators, there is no pre-screen, and so we have to do the pre-screen in another way. And the way that we have chosen is to identify the characteristics that we're looking for, and then to review every application that comes in. It is not to say that there were only 6 or 8 who were qualified for the position. There were many more than that who were qualified for the position. We made determinations based on both the posting and also our review of their application materials. We looked for a relevant experience. We looked for leadership experience in a building. We looked for their ability to handle complex situations. We looked for their ability to have success in the position that they're in. And so there were many more than the 8 who ultimately were recommended to have the HumanX screening, but we determined that these 8 were the very best quality people. The reason that we limit to 8 the HumanX screening is that process takes anywhere between 1 and 2.5 hours to complete. And so if we were to open up that pool to 30 or 40 applicants, it would be overwhelmingly time consuming. And so that's the reason that we do that, to respond to Mr. Cook's comment.
time consuming to who?
To the administrators who have to do it.
So it would be 8 hours of work for each candidate, or
It-
the
it-
applicants take?
No, Mr. Kinzer is certified to do this screen. He's, I think, the only one in the district at this point.
Correct.
Week, and so he would have to spend between an hour and 2.5 hours with each of the candidates to screen them, to identify the ones that we would bring in for the panel interview.
Mr. Smith?
Just a question to seek to understand more clearly. I also support the nomination for Mr. Baker. I had a chance as a parent to sit in his office and discuss an issue that had come up with our daughter, and I was satisfied with how that was resolved. So my first question has to do with what Mr. Mena brings up, which is having internal candidates rise to the top. Would it be correct to say that some of that has to do with our desire to build strong culture within our school district, and if they're an active member in the community and part of the culture, then all other things being equal, that would elevate them?
That would certainly be part of it. Also, the reason our internal candidates rise to the top generally is that we have a strong administrative professional development program for them. Monthly, there is a leadership meeting that I conduct. Business and HR have a leadership meeting where they review business and HR issues, and Dr. Weber has an instructional leadership with the building level administrators. And so we believe that our internal mechanisms help develop our staff in ways that many districts don't. And so they're just strong candidates because of a lot of the work that we do here in the district.
And then it would be correct then to assume that because of their involvement in those programs, you obviously know them better. And again, if 6 candidates are all equal, but you've worked with someone for a period of time, that makes sense to me. Okay. My other question is more specific as it relates to a question that may have come up during the interview process, which I didn't see the 25 or the 16 questions. I'm aware of an incident this past school year that involved social media and bullying in Instagram and whatnot, and it was explained to me that the middle school, at least last year, did not have a policy where they would try to enforce any rules or police, for lack of a better word, social media. Is that a building decision, or was that from Principal Schreiner? Did it come up in the interview process with Rob that he's going or willing to at least look at that and address that? Because I think it needs to be addressed.
And from my perspective, those are issues that were discussed in the interview that I conducted. I wasn't in the interview that was conducted with the panel, and so I don't know if specifically it was addressed.
We didn't address it specifically, but certainly in a more general sense, we explored a number of student behavior related topics.
And so from a district perspective, we will, social media is an issue that we're trying to address across the district with students and with staff. And so that will certainly be, it's been a focus this year with staff, and next year as we move into the school year, we're going to try to identify what the appropriate response is across the district with our students.
That's also something that's being looked at legislatively right now, too.
Like
So
privacy laws and such?
not necessarily privacy laws, but just how social media, what is the school district's responsibility after hours, and how do we manage that, and are there things that we can do to support
But that is
students?
on the radar.
Yes.
Because it was my understanding that if, as a parent, I came into the administration and said, look at this post from one of the other students to my student. The approach from the administration was, no, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do about that because it didn't happen in our building necessarily, or it happened after hours. But I still think it's a pretty real threat to our kids.
I would agree, those are real threats, and ultimately those impact what goes on in school, and that's how we can address it.
So it sounds like moving forward, there will be more of a desire?
No, there will be more specific guidance developed for our administrative staff.
Okay, that's fair, thank you.
Okay. So I will just say real quickly, I've had a couple of children that had the privilege of having Mr. Baker as a teacher have had some interaction, not as a principal, I haven't had interaction with him yet as a principal, other than just to see him engaging with kids in the buildings. And I have always been impressed with his knowledge, his passion, the fact that the kids seem to really respect and listen to him. I've been over there a couple times at lunchtime, which can be a little crazy, and he is always out there in the mix. And he tells them to do something, and they listen. And I think that speaks to who he is as a person and how he treats other people, which I think is I think that'll be a really fantastic thing, for any role that he serves in. I'm certainly supportive of him moving into that position at the middle school, and we'll be supporting the recommendation as well. So without further ado, if there's nothing additional, I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the personnel report B, the recommendation for Robert Baker to fill the middle school principal position, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have a technology purchase. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. This comes before the board. It was presented to the board on May 17th. This is for the purchase of 570 iPad 2s that are out of warranty. The iPads were purchased in between 2011 and 2013, making some of them up to 7 years old. The replacement iPads, the cost has decreased. We were able to get a bid from the Regional Educational Media Center, or RIMC, and the new iPad cost is $300. This technology department recommends the purchase of 701 iPads at $300 each from Apple. This will add a cart for the middle school and replace the carts in the Instructional Technology Center that were deployed to the buildings this year. In addition, it was recommended at May 17th board meeting that we purchase 701 gumdrop cases from Precision Data at $28.75 each. Since that time, however, the cases have become unavailable. Further, a lower cost solution has been identified. It is now recommended that we purchase a comparable iPad case from the Pod Drop in Novi at $18.50 each. By purchasing from the Pod Drop, we will realize the cost savings of $7,185.25. The Pod Drop is a reputable, trusted local vendor, also handles all of our iPad repairs. So the technology department also recommends the purchase of 100 Windows student laptops from Presidio. These laptops will replace current laptops in the Media Center purchased in 2012 and add a set of laptops for room 221, which currently teaches coding. We're requesting a total expenditure not to exceed $325,000 from the 2014 bond. And so this recommendation comes after having been discussed at the May 17th board meeting, and it's presented tonight for approval.
Okay, so the only change from the May 17th meeting is that the amount has changed because the gumdrop cases, which is what I have here, is unavailable, and we're purchasing them from the Pod Drop, so that drops our cost. And I would entertain a motion. Mr. Bennett.
Yeah, I move that the board approve purchase of iPads, iPad cases, and the Windows student laptops, and that the Assistant Superintendent of Business and Operations be authorized to expend the funds from the 2014 bond fund.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Bennett and supported by Mr. Smith. Is there any additional discussion on this item? I appreciate you pointing out the change in that, because that's fantastic. And having been to the Pod Drop many times for my children's phones, I know, and my own, I know they do great work. So that's fantastic to give the local company business as well.
And for what it's worth, the owner of the Pod Drop is a former parent of this district as well. So nice to support them if possible.
Okay. All right, it's been moved and supported. All those in favor of the recommendation for technology, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have our summer tax levy. This was also on our May 17th meeting, I believe, correct, Dr. Matthews?
Yes, it was, Ms. Murphy. This comes to board consideration because we must give to the city of Novi tax information that they can use on the tax bills that go out in the summer. And to the homeowner, the district's total millage levy will be 11.1457 mills, which is a decrease of 0.1140 mills from fiscal year 2017-18. This equates to a decrease in property taxes of $11.40 per $100,000 of taxable value. At the November 18th, 2017 meeting, the Novi Board of Education resolved to levy 50% of all taxes in the summer and 50% in the winter. This information is necessary for completing the 2018 tax levy and was received from the Department of Treasury after the May 17th, 2018 meeting, the due date of the most recent board meeting. Because the tax levy must be certified by early to mid-June, the certification of the attached 2018 summer tax levy is presented for information and for approval at tonight's board meeting, as opposed to being for just discussion and then approval next
Oh,
week.
okay, thank you.
We did that.
I thought for some reason we
No.
discussed it, but maybe that was a whole year ago.
It was, this information was given in the weekly.
Or 6 months, okay. Oh, I saw it in the weekly, that was what it was. All right, so we've seen a little bit of information about this, we do this all the time. Mr. Cook?
I recommend that the Novi Community School District Board of Education, in the best interest of the school district, authorize summer July 18, 2018 tax levy as listed on the attached schedule.
All right.
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Cook and supported by Mrs. Stevenson. Are there any additional questions about this? So every year we are required to do this by law so that they can send the tax bills out, and we do it twice a year as opposed to once a year in order to give the
Tax rate.
community a little bit of a relief in their payments, and also to basically be able to pay our teachers at the beginning of the year, which is always a good thing as well. So, yes. Oh, Mr. Cook, I thought you were pointing. I apologize.
No, I'd just like to say it's great that we can offer a break in the tax rate to our citizens through the due diligence of our financial people here at the district, through Miss Minnick and her predecessor, being able to get some of these rates lowered. It's very helpful.
So I will call the question. All those in favor of accepting the tax levy as described, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Next, we have some revisions to our 2018-19 board meetings. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The 2018-19 Board of Education meeting schedule was presented and approved on the consent agenda at the January 11th, 2018 board meeting. The calendar was open for information and discussion at the May 17th, 2018 board meeting due to school district calendar and Board of Education calendar conflicts. And so it comes back to the board tonight for some action. There is a couple of changes worth noting. One is our July 12th meeting has been moved to July 23rd due to some conflicts in having an MASB facilitator with us and also board calendars. And so I believe that's a Monday evening. Also, our August 23rd meeting on Thursday is moved to August 22nd because August 23rd is a home football game. And so you also, the September 20th meeting is moved to September 13th because of conflicts in the school superintendent's conference schedule, which would prevent Dr. Weber and I from being at that conference, which is good for us professionally. And then what comes to you are two recommendations, and we ask the board to choose which one they would like. One is that the Board of Education meeting dates have Thursday and Saturday work sessions, or the Board of Education approve a calendar with only Thursday work sessions. So there's recommendation 1 and recommendation 2, and we would leave it to the board to determine which recommendation you would want to move forward.
Okay. Well, I would entertain a motion, I guess, first, since we do that on action items. Would someone like to make a motion for one of those, recommending either the Thursday to Saturday or the Saturday? Thursday and Saturday, or just the one with Thursdays? Mr. Cook?
I'll recommend that the Novi Community School District Board of Education approve the 2018-19 Board of Education meeting dates with Thursday work sessions.
All right. Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved by Mr. Cook and supported by Mr. Mena. Is there discussion on that particular calendar? Okay, I will just say, I'm going to say for the record, I'm not going to support the recommendation. I will go along with, obviously, whatever the board decides. I do believe that there is value in coming in fresh for some of the things that we do, and having clear minds and not tired. And my personal feeling is that the students that we're serving, that's valuable to the district. It's valuable to the students that we serve to come in with a fresh mind and not be tired at the end of a work day. So I won't be supporting that recommendation.
I would agree with that. I also think it's only 2 Saturdays out of the year, so I think I can personally make adjustments to my schedule for that.
All right, well, it's been moved and supported, so we will, no one else has any comments to make, I will call.
Can I get a roll call vote on that then?
Certainly, certainly.
Can I, just before you go,
Sure.
I don't remember, Mrs. Hood, what your stance was on that? Because I thought the last time it came up for discussion, we were pretty mixed. I know there was a couple of people that didn't think they'd be able to make every Saturday because of other commitments.
The 2 Saturdays?
Well, not both, but maybe one of the two, and
right.
it was a maybe. Obviously, there's board members that can't make it for some Thursdays. Is it critical that all 7 of us be there for each Saturday work session?
That's a good question, Mr. Smith. Usually the first one of the year is one where we do we've done our superintendent evaluation training at that.
Oh, right.
We've done some other things that have been required of us. And that tends to be a little bit lengthier in the amount of time that we need to spend doing some of those things. I think typically we've done kind of retreats at those where we spend a little bit more time than just the typical 2 hours that we spend here. They're usually 3-hour sessions that we use well, I think, to benefit the students that we serve, to get more education, whether it's for ourselves, do our board self-assessment.
Right.
We've done that on Saturdays. We're doing Dr. Matthews' evaluation on a Saturday this time.
Which should go very quickly, I might.
So.
I like Saturdays because you can do donuts.
Well, there's that. So obviously, that's just my. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hood.
No, I could
So
chime
you
in.
can
Go ahead.
address Tom's question to you.
And I guess I am indifferent, but I do, to Mrs. Murphy's point, I do find value in Saturday morning sessions. It's just a different atmosphere. And I think we are maybe more candid on Saturdays, which is useful. And anyway, so I will, I should have made the motion first. I should have beat Mr. Cook to approve for Thursday and Saturday work sessions. It is just 2 for the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Saturday, yeah. So I won't be supporting the Thursday only, and we'll see.
Okay, well, so is it okay if I call the question?
Sure.
Okay, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Roll call.
A roll call vote, excuse me. Mr. Mena, would you do a roll call vote for us,
Sure.
please?
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
No.
Trustee Hood.
No.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy.
No.
Trustee Stevenson.
No.
Okay, so the motion
That motion failed.
fails.
2 to 4.
I would entertain, it's 2 to 4, thank you. I would entertain a second motion.
I move that the Novi Community Schools Board of Education approve the Board of Education meeting dates with Thursday and Saturday work sessions.
Support.
So moved by Mrs. Hood and supported by Mrs. Stevenson. There's no additional discussion on that? No? Okay. I will call the question. All those in favor?
call again?
No, roll
roll
call.
call.
Just-
Okay.
You would like a roll call vote again? please?
All right, let's try this again. Trustee Cook.
No.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Hood.
Yes.
I'm indifferent, so Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Stevenson.
Yes.
All righty.
Okay. So we have an amended calendar for next year, and the changes will be made and posted
Correct.
for that. Next, are we in need of a break before we go into this?
No.
I'm seeing heads nod, no. Heads shake, no. We will move into our information discussion. First is our final budget. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. On March 1st, 2018, the board approved the first amendment to the 17-18 general fund budget. A final amendment to the budget reflecting all of the changes known at this time has been created and is presented to the Board of Education tonight. I would introduce Ms. Minnick to run through that final budget amendment with the Board of Education. Ms. Minnick.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Good evening.
Hi.
It is my pleasure to present to you the final budget amendment for the general fund for this school year, 2017-2018. First, we will take a look at the high-level summary of the budget, total revenues, total expenditures, and fund balances.
Hey, Jill, can
Yes.
you just tell us, is this the presentation, the summary? No, is it exactly what we have in our board book under
Yes.
presentation? Okay.
Yes, the PowerPoint
Okay,
presentation.
I just wanted to make sure I was looking at the right thing. Okay, thank you.
Sure. The first column is the budget amendment that was adopted in February, and the middle column is the recommended final amendment for this school year. We anticipate an increase in overall revenues of about $248,000 and a decrease in our general fund expenditures of about $185,000. Together, we expect to increase our fund balance by an additional $433,000 than was previously projected. Taking a closer look at the revenues, we can see that the overall increase in revenues of about $248,000 is comprised of a decrease in budgeted local revenues and transfers, and an increase in anticipated state aid and federal revenues. Specifically, a reduction in local revenues made up of just a variety of miscellaneous sources and line items, and an additional state aid dollars for retirement and an increase in federal grants, representing either additional allocations in those federal grants or allocations of carryover funds from previous years. Looking now at expenditures, we see a net reduction in our expenditures of about $185,000. The larger reductions you see are reallocations of the pass-through retirement costs from the basic programs and pupil support services across the other functions to where those actual retirement costs have been and will be continued to be recorded. Again, taking a closer look now at expenditures, we have an increase in our budgeted salaries of $350,000, and those primarily arise from those additional grant dollars from the federal government. We see a reduction in our retirement pass-through costs, which aligns our estimated costs to those actual retirement costs. We have an increase in our contracted services of about $175,000, which is comprised of increases to our occupational therapy, physical therapy, and psychology contracts for independent contractors. And then we have small increases in our supplies and miscellaneous other expenditures. Our next steps then for our 17-18 general fund final budget amendment is to continue to monitor our revenues and expenditures through June and July and August. For revenues and expenditures that become known in July and August but relate to the current school year must be accrued and reported on our books for this year. Our 17-18 fiscal year revenues and expenditures and transactions will be audited. That audit is scheduled for mid-September. And our next step then would be to move into looking at our 18-19 original budget adoption for next school year.
All right.
So this comes to the board this evening as information and discussion. It would come back to the board on next Thursday, on June 21st for approval. And this would be our final budget amendment for the 2017-2018 school year.
All right. So are there questions for Ms. Minnick this evening? I know you've had the chance maybe to look this over already as our treasurer, Mr. Cook. Is that accurate?
Yes, we actually had a financial committee meeting where we went over the amended budget, and everything seems to be in line. I've also had the preliminary conversations with the auditors, like Ms. Minnick has and Dr. Matthews has also. So looks like everything is all set. So we're just kind of in autopilot and waiting for things to happen.
Okay.
I had two things actually, and at our committee meeting, I don't remember if Mr. Cook brought it up or Mrs. Minnick brought it up, and that was the discrepancy, I'll say, the $433,000, or actually the total discrepancy from the first budget to the last budget is tiny. And Mrs. Minnick and her team deserve our congratulations for really running a tight ship and being very accurate with your estimations and forecasts, and thank you for that.
I appreciate that. Thank you. It is a team effort, and like you said, the $433,000, it in itself is a large number, but as a percentage of our overall $77 million budget, it is a small percentage.
Yeah, and then I had two. I had two things I wanted to confirm with Mrs. Minnick, because I didn't see it in the, we talked about it, but I didn't see it in the presentation, and that was that our 2017-18 budget reflects our foundation allowance from the state of $8,599 per pupil. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And then I also wanted to confirm that the foundation allowance is really the funding that the district receives from the state of Michigan to run our schools. So to pay our teachers and staff, to buy our textbooks, to run our buses. Is that correct?
It is. It is comprised of local tax dollars and the allocation from the state. That is the purpose and how we use those dollars.
Okay. Because then I wanted to talk a little bit about, it's election season, and with it comes some. We got a mailer last week from an incumbent who stated that part of their what do I want to say? They were responsible for the most K through 12 school funding in state history. And, this comes up every 2 years, and it sounds great for those who are not immersed in either school funding or are just busy living their lives. But it sounded odd to me, and I went back and looked at some old records. So just to be clear, the Novi School District, from our foundation allowance, the highest that we ever, what do I want to say? The highest foundation allowance funding with which we operate our schools, the highest ever was from the 2009-10 school year, and our funding was $9,080 per pupil. And so in 2000, after Governor Snyder came into office, they started cutting. And what we received this year, $8,599 per pupil, is still $481 less than what we received in 2010. And I can do that math. You don't have to agree with me, but I just wanted to comment that the Novi School District still gets almost $500 less per student than we did almost 10 years ago. And even if we had kept up with inflation, if we took our funding from 2010 and kept up with inflation, we're about $2,000 less per student. And every year, that's about $13 million. So we are not getting anywhere near what we used to get, and we don't have the highest in state history. So that's all. I just wanted to clarify that because it's
in our budget.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a little, so we are, yeah, it's a little different conversation about what we need to do about that.
Right.
But certainly, from a budget perspective, we're looking to approve this budget for in our foundation allowance, which you're going to talk about next. I think about the slight increase that we're getting for next year's budget. Still probably below that number, but an increase nonetheless. So
yes.
If there are additional questions about the budget.
I'd just like, that being said, I'd like to commend our administration for the allocation of those funds. We are one of the top districts in the state, even though we may not be receiving what we should have been receiving.
Absolutely.
And it all comes down to where those funds are allocated and how our administration handles those. So we'd like to commend everybody here for that.
Absolutely. Making wise budget decisions. Okay. So we will move on to our 2018-19 preliminary budget. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The state requires that all school districts adopt a budget for the upcoming fiscal year by June 30th of each year. The proposed budget document for the 2018-19 fiscal year has been prepared based on projections and estimates, including student enrollment, which will be known at a later date. The proposed budget document is presented to the board tonight for review. The budget adoption process for the upcoming fiscal year must include a public budget hearing, a notice of such public hearing, which must appear in a local newspaper at least 6 days prior to the hearing, a budget document made available for public inspection, including the proposed property tax millage rate, and board adoption of the budget in the form of a 2018-19 General Appropriations Act resolution. Once the public hearing has taken place, the board adopts the budget. This year, the public hearing will be held on Thursday, June 21st, 2018 at 7 p.m. at the regular meeting of the Board of Education. The notice will appear in the local newspaper on Thursday, June 14th, 2018, and the budget document will be available for public inspection at the Educational Services Building beginning Tuesday, June 12th, 2018.
That should read June 19th.
Oh, June 19th, sorry. Next Tuesday. The proposed budget document is presented to the board tonight for review with adoption in the form of a 2018-19 General Appropriations Act resolution. The draft resolution is attached for you to review. And tonight, Ms. Minnick will review the 2018-19 proposed budget for the board. Ms. Minnick.
Thank you, Dr. Matthews. This presentation is in a very similar format to what we just saw for the final amendment. And looking at the projections for next year's general fund, we see, again, that first column, which represents the final amendment numbers, which I just reviewed. The middle column is the projection of revenues, expenditures, and fund balances for next school year, 2018-19. And we can see from a high level that we anticipate our revenues to increase by $1.2 million and our expenditures to increase by about $2 million. This results in a reduction in our fund balance of about $800,000. Taking a closer look at the revenue section of the budget, we anticipate a flat budget in our local revenues. That's a very conservative approach based on the fact that our property tax levels I'm anticipating to be somewhat flat. There was a heavy rollback, but property tax values continue to increase. If there are changes to that, that will be mentioned in the amended budget in the winter. Our state revenues are anticipated to increase, and that's based on some additional enrollment projections and additional pupil funding. The projections for our federal revenues are remaining constant. We have no new news as to our federal allocations for any of our federal grants at this time. And our incoming transfers and other transactions are anticipated to increase by about $256,000. And we'll take a closer look at each of those numbers now. Our increase in our state aid is anticipated to be a $120 per pupil increase. That was just approved by the conference committee recently. And we are projecting 40 new students for enrollment next school year. The incoming transfers represent an increase in the Shared Public Act 18 funds, which is a county-wide millage levy for special needs costs. Turning to expenditures, we can see that the $2 million increase projected in our expenditures for next year is made up primarily of costs in our instruction line items. We anticipate an increase in our basic programs of nearly $800,000, our added needs of nearly $500,000, and although it's listed under non-instruction, our pupil support services line item is anticipated to increase by nearly $300,000. Pupil support services include such things as guidance counselors, OT, PT, occupational therapy, physical therapy, psychologists, social workers, and the like, teacher consultants. So although they are listed as support services, they are certainly related to our classroom instruction. What are some of those assumptions behind those added dollars? We are increasing our current staffing by 6 general education teachers. We'll be adding 1 additional school resource officer, 1 social worker, 1.5 FTE English language teacher, English language learner teacher, 1 gifted coach, 2 math interventionists for grades kindergarten through 4th, 1 FTE of secretarial support, which is actually comprised of 2 half-time positions, 1 additional maintenance staff, an HVAC person, and the addition of 2 hall monitors at the high school and 1 at the middle school, and 1 after-school activity monitor at the high school, which will monitor visitors and activities at the door at the back of the high school, where we have a lot of visitors after school for athletics and other events going on at that school. We are anticipating 12 teacher retirements, and the budget includes a retirement rate of 38.39%, which has been published by the Office of Retirement Services. Total budgeted expenditures maintains our current level of merit pay for our teachers, and I should note that it also includes a placeholder for our ongoing negotiations with our teachers group. As a result, you can see that the expenditures comprise about 85%, the salaries and benefits comprise about 85% of our total budget, which is outstanding, and it makes sense. We are a service industry, and so the majority of our budget should be in salaries and benefits for our staff. Looking at a forecast of our general fund for the next 3 years, our 18-19 original budget, our total revenues of $78 million and our expenditures of about $79.5 million, result in a use of our fund balance of about $1.4 million. And at the end of the year, we anticipate that our ending fund balance will be about 10.28% of our expenditures. The projection for 19-20 is about a $78.8 million budget for revenues, $79 million for expenditures, resulting in less use of our fund balance for the following year of about $263,000, resulting in an ending fund balance as a percentage of our expenditures of 10.01%. And for 3 years out, in year 2021, we can see actually in addition to our fund balance of about $740,000, resulting in a fund balance of about 10.99% of our expenditures. And we'll look a little bit more closely at these numbers. For the forecast in our revenues, next year's projection, we anticipate again a change in our student enrollment of 40 pupils, and that remains constant for a projection of year 2021. Next year, we anticipate a change in Foundation and Public Act 18 revenue sources of about $50 per student, which equates to about an addition of $330,000 for both years. Looking at our expenditures, next year we anticipate no increase in our teaching staff, and that's because of those 6 additional general ed teaching staff and the list of the variety of other staff that we're hiring this year. Should we have a large increase in our student enrollment, we believe that our current hiring should be able to absorb any additional enrollment and still maintain those targeted small class sizes. We anticipate savings from retirements over the next 2 years of an average of 9 retirements each year. And then we know we will, of course, anticipate an increase in our medical insurance. The state of Michigan sets that cap. It is a cap, a maximum threshold of what school districts can contribute to its employees' healthcare programs. And for the last few years, we have seen an increase of anywhere between 2 to 3%, and it is tied to the Consumer Price Index for medical services. That concludes the projections for the general fund. We'll turn now to the recreation fund. And our original budget projections for that fund reflect just some small changes. We have an increase in our revenues of about $12,000. Excuse me. And that is reflective of a realignment of our facility rental charges. The Community Education Department and I did a review of surrounding districts and other venues for facility rentals for gymnasiums, auditoriums, and such. And we realigned some of those rental fees. Nothing exorbitant, but we should see a little bit of an increase in those revenues. We've projected an increase in our expenditures of about 2.5% to reflect changes in staff and retirement and medical benefits, for a net decrease in our fund balance of about $34,000. So very small changes there. Turning to the food service fund, we anticipate just a very slight increase in our revenues. A la carte sales is the primary driver in our sales, and so that reflects just a small increase in those sales. And as in terms of our expenditures in the food service fund, we know we will have an increase in our management fee, some cost increases in food, and for our noon aids. And if you recall at the May 17th meeting, the board did adopt and approve the food service contract, MDE approved that as well, and the state sets those increases, which was set at 2.5% for the management fee. So what are the next steps with our budgets for next year? We will continue to monitor those state budgets. We know that the conference committee approved a number of measures which are in line with the governor's executive budget proposal back in February. We'll continue to evaluate those revenue and expenditure projections because they are just projections. We don't know what our revenue expenditures will be because we don't know our enrollment quite yet and some of our new staffing. And we will amend next year's school budget if necessary to reflect those changes. Are there any questions that I can answer?
All right, I would open this up to questions from the board. Lots of information, Ms. Minnick. Thank you for keeping them in the same format. I think that helps be able to follow all of that. I know that the finance committees looked this over as well.
Yes.
You presented it to them. Are there additional questions that maybe came up that you'd like to share?
You mentioned in the general fund that the merit portion is going to remain the same as it was this year. In our last working session that we had as a board, that was being increased. And I don't recall a conversation of that during the finance committee meeting, unless it happened after I left, because I had a hard rock, I couldn't stay any later. But I don't recall that conversation, and it just comes as kind of a little bit of surprise. I'm wondering why that decision was made.
I can respond to that. As we looked at our budget and you see the fund balances that are proposed for the next 3 years, we decided that that was an expense that we couldn't afford at this time. Secondly, and perhaps more importantly, we've only had the merit proposal in place for 1 year. This is the first year that we are implementing it and will pay out merit to our teachers and administrators. It is required by state law for us to have a merit program. And we have, as we have examined merit programs across the state, one that we think is at least connected to numbers and for achievement and growth of our students. And so we believe that it's a good merit program. However, we have no real track record as to whether or not it will impact teaching and learning in our district. And so in conversations at the cabinet level, I made the decision that we would postpone increasing that merit pot until we had at least a little more data to go on to see if it would impact and drive improvement in our district. I did send out an email yesterday detailing some of that background. I apologize for the late notice on that, but that's the rationale.
Dr. Matthews, at this point, what percentage of our employee base would be receiving merit pay for this coming year?
We have not calculated it completely, but it appears that there will be merit. Most of our employees will get merit. It will vary based on the school location and the targets that we have set in that merit, so it will vary between buildings based on those target numbers.
So, I mean, is it your belief that a merit system where, 99% of your employee base receives something is a worthwhile merit program? I mean, I know that's kind of an argument that we've had for a long time, and I had recommended a while ago when we had budget discussions that we may want to consider really looking deeper into that and maybe even hiring a consultant, maybe putting some money aside in our budget to hire a consultant, somebody who can come in and maybe make some suggestions on a really unique merit program that we can implement here in Novi, maybe first of its kind, that would work in an education-based system. So, I'm still concerned, especially given that, we still have an evaluation system that evaluates teachers. 90% of our teachers show up as highly effective. I'll be patient and wait to see the outcome of this, but I am concerned that we're throwing good money at a system that maybe isn't going to give us the results we're looking for, and more importantly, a system that I think should be rewarding the very, very top employees that we have in our district.
As just a point of note, in our district, we have been at the top of the county in performance in the M-STEP categories for the last 3 years in a row. And so if we're rewarding based on performance, there's some indication that our performance is among the very top in the state and in the county. So, you know, the merit is a tricky component. You know, and I would welcome a more robust discussion with the board about how we might implement a system that might drive. I would also argue that maybe some of the drivers that are typical in a merit system are not typical for people who go into education.
I agree.
And so we have to kind of balance that. You know, as you know, I've substituted throughout the district this year, and I can tell you that a kindergarten class is significantly different than an AP computer science class, and yet both of those teachers do a tremendous job. And how do you measure the impact that a kindergarten teacher is having versus the impact the AP computer science teacher is having? You know, I was in a 3rd grade class just this week, substituting for half a day, and you know, and they were multiplying fractions. You know, and I'm thinking to myself, I haven't multiplied a fraction in a long time. You know, and yet, you know, that's just the routineness of those classrooms. And so, merit is a difficult concept in education to try to figure out. You know, some districts, for example, give merit for teachers who are willing to teach in a high needs school. You know, we don't have high needs schools in our district. Some districts in our state have done merit based on attendance. I don't think that's a great way to do merit. You know, you get a paycheck every 2 weeks for coming to work, and so you know, I don't want to reward them for doing their job, you know, and so it's you know, it's a tricky thing, and I think that merits, pardon the pun, a further discussion among the board about what exactly we might be able to do to drive that. As I said, it is required by the state. There is a financial penalty for districts that don't have a merit system, so we have to be mindful of that as well. But I concur with you, Mr. Mena, that we have to you know, look to see if this one, what we've done, impacts it all, and that's one of the reasons I requested a pause in increasing that. Thank you.
Okay. So additional, I know when we initially started talking about it, we had some criteria to say, well, these would be great things, and then they rolled it all into the evaluation.
Correct.
So once we got a new evaluation system that was required by the state, a lot of what we were looking to do ended up in rolled into that evaluation. So then there being, so I know kind of we went back to the drawing board at one point. So, and who knows, maybe the state will actually come up with what we're supposed to do at some point, and then whatever we've done would be.
I would hope not.
Well, I would too, but it's possible. Okay, so in the meantime, Ms. Minnick, thank you very much for the concise presentation and the work, and obviously keeping our budget tight and projecting those numbers is not an easy task. We appreciate that. If the board thinks of questions before our final presentation, which will be at the June 21st meeting, please fire them off to either Ms. Minnick or Dr. Matthews so that they can compile those and get those out to the whole board. So if there are additional questions that people have, we can get those answered before the meeting and not have you scrambling for numbers maybe at the next meeting. So thank you. Appreciate that. Next is our administrative contracts renewal. Dr. Matthews.
Thank you, Ms. Murphy. The current administrative contracts expire on June 30th, 2019. Based on their evaluation and their job performance, it is recommended that the superintendent be authorized to extend the following administrative contracts another year through June 30th, 2020, which would give them a 2-year contract. There's one change that will be made in here. I've listed the administrators that we are recommending for a contract extension. You will note that Robert Baker will no longer be the high school assistant principal. He will move to being the high school or the middle school principal, and so we will have 2 openings at the middle school. And so we bring these tonight for your review, and then we would bring them back next week for renewal.
All right. Does anybody have questions on that for Dr. Matthews, this administrative contract renewal? Yes, Mr. Cook.
Elementary principals, we have 4 listed here. Is that the 5th one's contract, right?
This one is contracted, correct.
All right, and I know you noted down there as well that some of those other administrative positions that have not been filled yet would not be on here because they've not been evaluated.
So there won't be any salary changes on any of these, or?
They have administrators have a salary increase that was negotiated last year that the board approved.
Including our new principal at the middle school, there won't be any adjustment there, or?
There will be an adjustment in that salary, and I will provide the board with that information.
Okay.
All right, additional questions on that? All right, seeing none, we will move on to our second opportunity for comments from the audience. This is the second opportunity for anyone from the community to address the board about any item in our jurisdiction. If you would not mind, if you filled out a green card.
Oh, I didn't fill out a green card.
You know what, just fill it out before you leave. That would be fine, and leave with us. They're right by the door.
But you can come up to the mic and fill
Yeah.
that.
Okay. I have something to pass out. Should I do that now or leave it with you, or
You can
follow along?
leave it with us.
Okay.
We are going to
You
just...
guys want to, Dr. Kinzer probably look.
Okay, as we pass those around, I'll just remind you that we do limit your comments.
Yep, 5 minutes, right?
Okay, you're on top of things. So thank you for being with us and sticking with us through the entire meeting tonight.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. I've never been to one, so I thought it was, yeah, it was interesting. There were some things I found interesting. So my name's Mike Lubin. I know some of you. I have 2 kids in the Novi School District, one in 9th grade and one in 8th grade. They're both in the athletic department, or in the Novi Athletics, which is why I've come here tonight to talk to you.
You know what, just real quickly before you start, because I glanced down at your things, if you could refer to not the specific person's name, but maybe the position.
Okay,
that
that's
would
fine.
probably be a good idea.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
I only did that just as I think it'll be okay, but I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just read right from it. Novi School Board members, I'm speaking to you tonight regarding the boys basketball program in the Novi School District. Please just listen and take action where requested. So I'll start with a summary. Based on conversations and observations, it's my opinion that when the junior varsity basketball coach was moved from the JV coaching position to the middle school position, the varsity coach was provoked to resign. To be sure, this may not have been the sole reason. Only the varsity coach knows the entire story. But this was either the single reason he left or the proverbial final straw. This has left the program in a terrible state. For your information, in case you don't know, the annual summer basketball season has begun, and neither the JV nor the varsity have a coach. Kids who are involved in the program may not be afforded the same opportunities that previous classes enjoyed. The program, which just completed its finest season in history, is now leaderless. The varsity and JV head coaches, the varsity assistant, and all of the key players from the last 2 years are gone. This program is starting from scratch. The posting for both jobs closes this week, and it is expected that a coach will be hired soon. The high school experience is a singular one. You only get one shot. For these kids, and to an extent their families, to have to tolerate this situation is, in my opinion, inexcusable and unacceptable, particularly since it did not have to come to this. I have discussed this issue at length with Brian Gordon and Dr. Matthews. For the board, I have clarified the issues and request for response were noted below. Action item number 1, provide the reason that the JV coach was moved to the 8th grade rather than removed from the program. This is not to disparage the JV coach, but it is not clear why an experienced coach would be moved in a manner such as this. It has been explained to me that due to language in the teacher's contract, evaluations for the JV coach were only allowed to occur every 3 years. I have looked at publicly available contracts which I've listed, and I cannot find anything referencing a mandated 3-year period between evaluations. It is therefore requested that the evaluation process is provided and that the board provides their opinion on whether this process was implemented correctly in this situation. Action item number 2. The previous varsity coach, as you may know, has taken the Novi Catholic Central varsity head coaching job, while also maintaining a job at Novi Middle School. It's my opinion that this violates Section 5.8 of the Novi Employee Handbook, which I've excerpted below. The varsity coach will be teaching and talking to many or all of the athletes in the middle school during a time that some of them are making decisions about which high school to attend. Please provide the board's position on this and course of action, if any. So the Section 5.8, no employee shall engage in or have a financial interest directly or indirectly in any activity that conflicts or raises a reasonable question of conflict with his or her duties and responsibilities. And then flip the page. No staff member shall use his or her position to benefit either himself or any other individual or agency apart from the total interest of the school district. Action item number 3, a report on the financial state of the basketball program, including details on how money was spent on equipment and gear, what was promised to the participants in this past season versus what was delivered. Number 4, report on the number of play dates the varsity program had last summer versus the number of the dates they will have this summer. And finally, it is requested that no personnel moves that may impact the basketball programs be made prior to addressing the items listed above. This includes the hiring of new coaches and extension of the contracts of anyone involved in the process. As time is critical, this does not include bringing in potential candidates for interviews, nor does it include any teaching moves or hires that may impact the hiring of either a JV or a varsity coach. I also don't have this on here, but since I heard earlier that 2 parents were on a committee to hire the principal for the middle school, I would request that 2 parents be on a committee to hire this coach as well. I think it's reasonable. It is requested that the above action items be addressed via a verbal and written report at either the June 21st or June 23rd board meetings. That's all I got. So.
Normally this isn't a time that we would respond.
Understood.
Exactly, but we will have one of the administrators follow up with you after the meeting.
Okay.
And
All right.
thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Next, we have our superintendent's report. Dr. Matthews.
My report is brief this evening. Tomorrow is the last day of school in the Novi Community School District. I would like to express my thanks to all the staff and the students for a wonderful year, and I hope everyone has a wonderful summer, and I look forward to the new year beginning, which officially begins on July 1st.
All right, next we have our administrative reports. Do you have more for us, Ms.?
I do. Now that school is ending, that means summer construction is here. So our high school parking lots will begin to be paved on Monday, starting Monday. The 2 10-mile lots will be first to be paved, which include the visitor drop-off loop and the 2 lots that are just north of the tennis court, the student parking and the parent drop-off loop. And once those are finished, the Taft lot will be repaved, which is our bus loop lot that we share with the City of Novi Public Library. And they are aware of our plans, and I've been in communication with them to keep them updated. And I will continue to do that as the project progresses. The southern lot at Orchard Hills will also be repaved in mid to early July, along with a variety of asphalt and concrete repairs throughout the district. The asphalt and drainage repair at the base of the middle school stadium ramp will also occur in July. And at the same time, concurrently, the City of Novi will begin their reconstruction of Taft Road between 10 Mile and Grand River. Only northbound traffic will be maintained during this reconstruction, and it is expected to last through early September. So we will have signage directing traffic to our early childhood center, Meadows, and all of our other buildings in this corridor. And we will also work with the city to develop bus route changes if necessary for the beginning of the school year. We remain in contact with them to know what their timelines are, and of course weather will impact how quickly they can get the project done. So at the end of July, early August, we'll start to develop communications for our families so they have those in time for school starting. And that is all I have this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Min. Dr. Kinzel.
I briefly addressed this earlier, but I did want to just comment on hiring. And mostly I just want to express my gratitude to our principals, assistant principals, teachers, who have been very actively engaged in our HumanX hiring process, delivering it with fidelity and bringing us really strong candidates. We do have a number of positions that remain posted that we're working on, so there will be more hiring soon. So I really appreciate our strong process and the way our administrators deliver it.
Thank you, Dr. Kinzer. And Dr. Weber.
Yes, I'd just like to point out that there are 36 robotics teams in the Novi community, 36 leading up to and culminating with Frog Force. So One piece that wasn't mentioned were the parent volunteers. None of those teams can work without a parent mentor, coach, and so on. Many of these happen in homes in the community, and we sincerely appreciate that and everyone who gives our kids the opportunity to go towards those pieces. So, thanks.
Next, we have our committee reports. Would you like to review anything that was discussed in your committee, Mr. Cook?
Well, the Finance Committee did meet, and we went over the presentations that we saw here tonight, and had opportunities to ask questions then and now. So we'll have more opportunities if we have them. So.
Great. We did meet for the Board Governance and Policy Committee one additional time with Mr. Kevin Sutton. And the next steps will really just be to make the final changes and get those back to the committee, and then it will be coming before the board on August 22nd, which is that Wednesday meeting to review and hopefully be ready to adopt a new policy manual by the start of the school year or shortly thereafter. So that will be the next step in that. It's been an interesting process and one that I'm sure we're all looking forward to bringing to a close. I thank the committee for diligent work and for our cabinet that appeared regularly to go over some of those things that are in our policies that we do differently out of practice, as well as things that have maybe been problematic, and addressing those and making sure that we get it right. So thank you for being there, many late evenings. And we thank Mrs. Holly for providing sustenance for us, food every weekend, for diligently being there to take notes and also to follow up when we needed additional information, so thank you. Next is the opportunity for board communication. Board members have anything going? I know there's a lot going on right now, but we've been to a lot of things. Mrs. Hood.
Hi, just one little thing. I wanted to thank Mr. Asher at Novi Woods. He's been kind of bugging me to go spend time with him all semester, and I did that on Monday, and it was wonderful. I was there for about 90 minutes, and I tried not to be too disruptive, and got a good tour of the building, went into most of the classrooms, and there was a lot of learning going on, and he bought me lunch, which was delicious, and the second graders apparently are, well, I don't know if it was only second graders, but he sings at lunchtime. He brings out his guitar and he sings. And I think Monday it was the second graders. Anyway, so I want to thank Mr. Asher for spending his time with me, and it was very nice. So thank you.
Your board members? Mr. Mehta.
Oh, Dr. Matthews, you dropped the ball today. How could you forget not to mention our girls going to state finals tomorrow?
Good point. I wanted to leave it to you, Mr. Van.
Oh, man. So yes, our girls will be competing in the state championship for soccer tomorrow in Williamston.
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, I plan on traveling out there. I hope to see many of you guys out there as well. Let's see, we also have a handful of our track athletes who are on their way to Greensboro, North Carolina right now, and they are competing in a national event, so I wish them much luck and safe travels. Also Monday, the Novi football team will be sponsoring. Novi football team, along with a few other sponsors, will be having their fantasy camp at the high school at 6:30. It's a great event. I've attended every one of them for the past few years, and it's really neat watching and seeing our special needs community members get to participate in all of these different drills. Also found out that Hikaru Kuro, who I spent a lot of time with here during the athletic season, he was selected to be the play-by-play announcer for the Michigan High School Baseball Coaches Association All-Star Game at Comerica Park on June 29th. So I'm very proud of him for that. On a less positive note, I stopped by the high school on Tuesday to donate some equipment to the Industrial Arts Department. While I was there, I was told that one of our classes, I think it's one of our industrial arts classes, were asked to move a majority of their equipment in order to make room for our robotics team. Needless to say, I was extremely disappointed at this news. Until now, the robotics team has been using room 123 for a lot of the stuff that they do, and Now they're being bumped in order to make room for our new incubator class. I do believe that this change will negatively impact our materials processing class and negatively impact students who take this class. And frankly, when I supported the incubator class, I had no idea that that would negatively impact our materials processing class. I may not have supported if that was the case. Over the past 2 years, I've sent a strong anti-CTE and anti-industrial arts bias in our district, and I'm not really sure what the root of that is. I'm hoping maybe we can get some clarity on that. The Industrial Arts and CTE department of the high school currently services a large number of the non-elite special needs students, and this particular class allows our students to learn real hands-on skills. So what I want to know is why the board wasn't involved or alerted on this curriculum decision. And I want to know why it seems that administration is micromanaging and dictating to the high school administration what classrooms should be used for what classes. I've just never heard of that happening before. There is a lot more questions to be answered, but I also know that there are indeed some parents now who want to communicate to us on the importance of this class and the positive impact it has made on their children. The board should certainly have an opportunity to hear from our industrial arts teacher to see if he has any suggestions that might be a win-win solution for both his class and the robotics team. I am a big fan of the robotics team, but an extracurricular program should never take precedence over curriculum. Currently, information being disseminated at the high school is that this was an edict from the board. I do not believe that to be true. I know we had some discussions about possibly going out for a bond and maybe even using bond money to find a new location for them. With that, I ask that our administration put this decision on hold until the board has had time to discuss the impact on our students, and with support, I'd like to see this issue on our agenda in an upcoming meeting for discussion.
All of that is news to me. I don't know, was other board members surprised of the situation?
I would support the discussion on an upcoming agenda, so we can
I'm
have
not-
more time to discuss.
Okay, Mr. Cook, all I'm asking is, were you apprised of this information?
No.
Because I think it would be helpful for the board to.
Well, it's not my decision, so maybe it should come from administration to us about what's going on here, and we can get some clarification.
And Mr. Mena just did ask for, with support, if we could discuss this in a future agenda, and I would support the discussion. That's all I'm stating.
I'll provide the board with some information.
Thank you. All right, additional board communication?
I went to the turnaround lunch with a number of you last week at the Meadows, and they spoke. There were 6 students that spoke to a number of us. Their parents or guardians were there. The faculty was there. It was awesome. It was really great to hear these 6 little lives share how they've turned it around. I can relate to that as having a 5th grader have some issues early on in making the transition to that building. So I thought that was really fun. And I forgot about the other thing I was going to say now, because it's late. But the turnaround lunch was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think several of us were there. It's always a great event, put on very well by the teachers, and really highlighting those students who've managed to really make a difference. You thought
I
what you
remember.
wanted to say. I'm glad I saw
I don't know what the game is called. Dr. Weber, is it Laura Ball? Where one of the grants that was awarded by the NEF was to Meadows, and they constructed this octagonish.
Octoball.
No.
Gaga ball?
Anyway, if you go to the NEF website, you'll see a picture of hundreds of kids up there playing in this new game thing that was just constructed this week. So the kids are having a great time. They're outside, finally taking advantage of the nice weather.
Fantastic.
It was just really neat to see the kids all coming together and having a good time, and there were parents out there as well. And that's exactly why the NEF likes to support grant requests like that. I think that was Mr. Grimm that was one of the leaders in that request. So
Fantastic.
that's good stuff.
Look forward to seeing that. I'll just say briefly, I obviously was at the turnaround lunch as well. So the mental health dialogues, is it a committee, Dr. Weber? It's not a committee.
Pardon me?
The mental health dialogues?
The parent group?
Yeah.
That we've.
Parent group, does-
Melissa Matson and I have been putting together, yeah.
Yeah, there's a really good, kind of solid group of parents that kind of are coming alongside this group just to talk about what we can do in this community, whether it's things we can do in the district or in the community to both educate, make people more aware, and like to be a positive force for some of the things that go on that seem to be part of our society these days, whether it's social aggression.
Yeah.
And some other things.
Relational aggression.
Relational
which
aggression,
was, I
thank
think,
you.
a comment that Mr. Smith brought up regarding social media and things like that, and
Yeah.
something that we'll be looking at. And then tonight at the career prep graduation, we heard 3 wonderful speeches from kids and or graduates, and one of them really focused on their own struggles with mental health and mental illness and that piece of it. So
Yeah.
I think we're fortunate to be living in a time where our kids are much freer to speak about the challenges that they're having than I think we ever were at their age. So
So I looked forward to seeing where that goes and the dialogue that creates in the community, and certainly some of the parents on it are very passionate about really impacting this community for positive things. So I look forward to that. I know we had graduation since last time. That went very well. Your speech was very well received. I know I had a few people that asked if you videotaped it and if there was a way we could put it out there, because it was very well done. So
You just liked my pictures.
I just want a picture of the beard again.
just like the pictures, yes. If you,
Maybe I'll
yes.
grow one.
So it was a great event. We had I think a record short. It was shorter and it was more kids. So those readers, the girls the student council that read the names just had the timing down, and it was a very smooth event for the most part. And I know it's something that we all enjoy as well. Senior all-night party was a great success, I understand. Didn't hear about any incidents from that either. So a lot of good things happening here at the end of the school year, leading up to the summer. I certainly look forward to wrapping things up as well for a little bit. And I think that is, I did, okay, Tom wants me to end. So we all have board communication at our next meeting, so anything that people got left out, please feel free to mention. Next, we do have the need for an executive session for the purpose of negotiations.
Correct.
I would entertain a motion to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive closed session.
Support. It's been moved by Mrs. Stevenson and supported by Mrs. Hood. I will say that we will not be returning to do any business of the board after that time, so you don't need to stick around until afterwards if you're still with us this evening. And I would ask for a roll call vote, please, Mr. Mena.
Trustee Cook.
Yes.
Trustee Smith.
Yes.
Trustee Hood.
Yes.
Trustee Mena, yes. Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Stevenson.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. We will move into executive session, and it's 9:19. Can we please be in there by 9:25? 6 minutes? Is that enough time? Okay. We'll aim for 9:25. Thank you.
2 minutes. 1 minute.